Um, Speaking of the hair loss or the hair,
Yeah.
DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone, a metabolite of testosterone, gets blamed for this issue. How much do you know about how that is working, and is having a high testosterone really what causes people to go bald?
Oh yeah, I know a lot about that stuff. Actually, a lot of my clients, they're teenagers, right? So they're like, oh man, doc, why don't I have a beard? I want to have a beard. And there's all these questions I get on email and YouTube
Yeah.
comments. So this is a really cool topic, man, because see, this is what's interesting. A lot of people associate androgens, including testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, which is a metabolite, with hair loss or, for
hmm
example, hair growth. It's not such an easy process. It's not so simple, right? Because
Yeah.
if you think of male pattern baldness, for example, right? For some people, so we know for sure that it is androgen dependent. So
hmm
if you have male pattern baldness, it is because of androgens. It is because of testosterone, and it is mainly because of the DHT part, that metabolite of testosterone. That is why it's happening. Now, the caveat here is that for some people, depending on their genetics, the male pattern baldness won't happen even though they have high testosterone, right? So
hmm
for some people, testosterone will cause them to become bald. And that is because of testosterone, period, and DHT specifically, right? Because DHT is actually 10 times more potent than testosterone itself. It's super, super strong, right? And then you have the opposite side, which is something like a beard, right? A beard is also androgen dependent. It's also DHT dependent. But the way it works is the metabolite is acting on follicles that are terminal, which means they last your entire life, right? So when a baby is born, it is born with something called vellus follicle. Sorry, Vellus, vellus. And so that's sort of like because those hairs are gonna go away, right? Like for a baby, it has vellus follicles and they're gonna go away. But then there are some processes that allow the vellus to become terminal, and that is because of androgens, specifically DHT, right? So then some people retain their hair for life. Nothing happens. Their hair, they don't have hair loss because they have terminal hairs which don't get converted back to vellus, the vellus type of hair. So that is how some people are bald and some people are not bald.
Okay. So if someone say they have low testosterone and they work to increase that, is that increasing their risk for hair loss, or is that really,
No, absolutely not.
although even though it's androgen dependent, that's not really the issue at
No,
play?
that's ridiculous, man. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people ask that because they say, oh, I mean, this is how I think of it, right? A lot of people like, oh man, I have low testosterone and I have this problem where my wife is not satisfied because she gets bored. I fall asleep really fast because my libido is not there, or man, I'm not getting gains at the gym. The what I tell them first is, look, man, I understand the pain. I was there, right? Right? But
Mhm.
the hair loss should not be what's keeping you from becoming more masculine, right? You know what I mean? And then I read up on the evolutionary psychology of hair loss, and it turns out that evolutionary psychologists, a lot of them believe that back in the day, caveman days, the baldness sign was actually a sign of wisdom. It's actually
Hmm.
a sign of, hey, we have a tribe leader who is bald. We know he's old because baldness is a sign of old age, but he's still there. He's not dead yet, right? So he did something amazing to survive this long, and so we should have him as a leader, right? So that's one amazing thing about
Huh.
being bald, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of people, I tell them, I mean, man, a lot of I actually did a mastermind with Brandon Carter a couple of weeks ago in Miami, and he was telling me like, "Yo, man, one of the best, some of the best people are bald, right?" So he's like Tupac and Michael Jordan, and Buddha, he named all these people. It's hilarious. But yeah, man, and turns out it's not even gonna do hair loss because it is something that's genetic, right? So And the other thing is, it's not, you don't need like a super high level of testosterone for baldness. You only need a little bit, right? So there are people who have low testosterone who are bald, right? Because their genetics is such that the low level of testosterone that they have is more than enough for them to be bald. So if you increase your testosterone, it's not going to make you bald or not. It's going to make you whatever you are, whatever your genetics are. But then it's going to enable you to have all the other benefits.
Right. Yeah. So it's not so much about the testosterone or DHT as it is about the receptors, which is more governed by genetics.
That's right.
Excellent. Okay. Cool. Well, we've talked a little bit about the androgen receptors, and this I feel, everyone, if they're getting blood or saliva test, right, you see total testosterone, you see free testosterone, that sort of thing. But this stuff's only so useful as the kind of the health of those androgen receptors, right? Whether they're extracellular, intracellular. So what are some of the things that we can do to help support the health of our cell receptors? Because I feel that's a not often addressed point, but very important.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that's a great point. So